Chapter 1. Ava's Dual Life. Ava Hart's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, her fingers curling into the smooth leather as if to ground herself. The city stretched before her, alive with its own chaotic rhythm. Columbus at night, a quilt of neon reflections and darkness. Headlights shimmered on wet asphalt, and the faint hum of nightlife reached her through the car's sealed windows. This was the version of the city she knew best, a restless maze of streets she navigated with ease. Yet tonight, the unease clawed at her from somewhere else. She glanced at the rearview mirror, catching her reflection. Her own gaze stared back, distant and muted. Ava adjusted the mirror slightly, not because it was out of place, but because it gave her something to do with her hands. A muscle in her jaw tightened. She wasn't nervous. She was never nervous. Outside, the glow of a townhouse lit up the curb where she waited, its windows spilling golden light onto the empty pavement. Laughter filtered out from the open door, low and indulgent, punctuated by the clink of glasses. The sound didn't carry far, dampened by the thick rain-heavy air. Ava didn't need to look to know Tess would appear soon. When the door opened, Ava's pulse quickened the way it always did when Tess Hartley stepped into view. Tess descended the stairs with a kind of grace that seemed effortless, though Ava knew better. She was wearing black tonight, elegant, understated, and devastating all the same. Her hair cascaded in soft waves over one bare shoulder, a casual asymmetry that left Ava momentarily breathless. Tess didn't smile as she approached, though Ava thought she caught the faintest curve of one before the streetlight stole it away. It was always like this after these parties, a kind of tension clinging to Tess as she stepped into the night, as though the glitter and noise inside her had worn thin. When she reached the car, Tess slid into the back seat without a word, her presence filling the space like a secret Ava wasn't sure she deserved to keep. The scent of Tess's perfume, floral, with a sharp undercurrent, something distinctly hers, wrapped around Ava, pulling her further into the undertow. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The low hum of the car engine and the faint rhythm of rain pattering against the windows filled the silence. "Did you have a good night?" Ava asked finally, her voice steady, despite the ache that had taken root somewhere behind her ribs. Tess's gaze met hers in the rearview mirror, and the corner of her mouth twitched. "Would you believe me if I said yes?" Ava didn't smile, but something in her expression softened. "Not for a second." Tess let out a quiet laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. She shifted, smoothing the fabric of the dress over her thighs as she glanced out the window. "It's always the same," she said. "The chatter, the small talk. It feels like trying to breathe in a room without air." The lightness in her voice was forced, and Ava caught the edge of something raw beneath it. "You survived," Ava replied softly. Her words weren't teasing, though they might have sounded that way to anyone else. To Tess, they were a promise, one Ava knew she didn't always make. They drove in silence for a while, the city blurring past in streaks of color and shadow. Ava kept her focus on the road, but her attention drifted to the reflection of Tess's face in the mirror. She was staring out the window, her profile illuminated by the passing street lights. The set of her jaw, the delicate line of her neck, details Ava had memorized long before now, felt sharper tonight, more fragile. When Tess spoke again, her voice was low, almost hesitant. "Clara's struggling again." Ava's chest tightened. Tess didn't talk about her daughter often, not unless things were bad. "What happened?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "The doctors still can't find a match," Tess said. She pressed her fingers to her temple, her nails barely grazing her skin. "And time's running out. I can feel it slipping through my hands." Ava swallowed the sharp response that rose to her throat. She wanted to tell Tess everything would be fine, that they'd find a way, but the words felt like a betrayal of the truth. Instead, she said, "She's strong, just like her mother." Tess's lips parted slightly, and for a second, Ava thought she might laugh, but Tess just shook her head, a ghost of a smile flickering across her face. "I'm not strong, Ava. I just survive." The words hung heavy in the space between them. Ava's fingers flexed on the wheel, and she forced herself to loosen her grip. "That's more than most people manage," she murmured. Tess's eyes found hers in the mirror, and something unspoken passed between them, something neither of them seemed ready to name. Tess shifted forward slightly, her knees brushing against the back of Ava's seat. Ava felt the warmth of it, the distance between them collapsing by inches. The stoplight ahead turned red, and Ava let the car coast to a smooth halt. For a moment, the city seemed to hold its breath. Tess's gaze lingered on hers, soft but piercing, and Ava had to fight the urge to turn around, to meet her directly instead of through the fractured barrier of glass. "You don't have to do this alone," Ava said quietly. The words weren't about Clara. Tess blinked, her expression unreadable, and Ava knew she'd crossed some invisible line. But Tess didn't pull back. Instead, she reached out, her fingers trailing lightly along the edge of Ava's seat. "You make it sound so easy," she said. There was no accusation in her voice, just a quiet resignation that made Ava's throat tighten. Before she could respond, the light turned green. Ava pressed the accelerator and the car slid forward, the moment slipping away with it. The silence returned, but it felt different now, charged, electric. Ava kept her eyes on the road, her pulse thrumming in her ears. She knew better than to look back, but the weight of Tess's gaze lingered like a hand pressed against her spine. By the time they reached Tess's building, the tension between them had settled into something heavier, something that refused to break. Ava stopped the car, letting the engine idle as Tess reached for the door handle. "Thank you," Tess said softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. She didn't look at Ava when she said it, but the words hit harder because of it. Ava nodded once, her throat too tight to speak. She watched Tess step out, the edges of her gown brushing the pavement as she disappeared into the building's warm glow. For a long moment, Ava sat there, staring at the spot where Tess had been. The city stretched out in front of her, indifferent and sprawling, but all Ava could feel was the absence Tess left behind.